First, I had nurses keep telling me to stop, and it's not as simple as just stopping. And I don't want to compare it to an addiction, but it's an instinct that you have to do. It's not just something you can be like, okay, I'll stop. It doesn't work like that. This is something that you feel like you need to do, and you can't just tell someone to stop. Just like somebody that is addicted to drugs, which is a terrible comparison, but it works for trying to explain this. You can't just tell them to stop. It's not as simple as just putting down the drugs or putting down the cigarette. It's something that you need to do. It's an instinct. You can't just hold somebody down and say to calm down, and that will make them feel better. That makes us more agitated and more likely to fight you off. And if you would have just left me alone, and if you would have just let me suck on my hand, let me bite my hand, I'm not biting so hard that I'm going to break a finger or break open my skin, but it's something that calms me down, and you can't just tell someone to stop, because that's not how it works. And you can't pin someone down, because that makes us more frustrated, because we can't get our needs met. We can't do what we need to do. And plus, on top of that, you're basically saying that I shouldn't be acting this way because I'm not severely autistic. But, you don't have to be severely autistic. You don't have to do that in order to act the way you do. Whether or not what level you have it, it's all basically the same. You have the same instincts, the same similar things you need. People with severe autism, they're typically nonverbal, or they jump up and down, or they bang their heads, or they flap their hands. And having what they call Asperger's, which isn't technically a name anymore, so it's autism spectrum, being on the more high functioning end of that, it doesn't just mean that we don't have that. It's one and the same. It might not be as severe, but we do bounce around. Occasionally we get these just bursts of energy, or these bursts of things where we have to yell, and people will tell us to be quiet, and it's not as simple as that, because it's something you need to do, something that you don't know why, but it's just one of those things that you get the urge to do, so yelling loud, not because of anything, just because you feel like you need to at that exact time. And, hitting your hands or flapping your hands, not necessarily flapping, but, fidgeting with stuff, biting my hands and arms, rocking back and forth, and for them to stop you is just like, I can't, you're supposed to be helping me, you're supposed to help me to calm down, and this is what I need in order to succeed, this is what I need to do to regain my concentration or regain my focus. So don't take that away from me, because that's who I am, that's what I do, whether or not I have severe autism or not, whether I'm nonverbal or not. At the time, I couldn't say anything. My brain could hear and see everything, but my body was just, it wasn't really an out-of-body experience. But what they talk about is, you being in a hospital, or them trying to resuscitate you from dying or cardiac arrest, and people will say that they go to heaven and stuff like that, but they can still hear and see everything, yet they weren't there, is very similar to how I was feeling. I couldn't really do anything, but I could hear and see everything they were doing, hear every little snarky comment they made about my disability. And that's not how children's hospitals should act when it comes to somebody. They're all about disabilities and all about positive experiences, and this wasn't. You do not get to call someone out on that stuff. If that's what they need in order to feel better, if that's what they need to do, then by God, let them do it. You know, unless they are directly injuring themselves or, hitting their head on concrete, yeah, that's a different story. Put a pillow there, it still gives a similar effect, but don't take away that comfort blanket that we had. Don't try to change who we are, because it's not something we chose. It's something that we were given, and it's something we have to deal with every day, not them. So Children's Hospital, honest to God, is terrible about that. They were inconsiderate and they were rude and basically saying that my disability really wasn't there, and yeah, it wasn't a necessarily positive experience during my recovery.